So as we wrap up, we are in a very peculiar moment here in the United States, especially as relates to this conversation of DEI, and many would say that diversity, equity, and inclusion are under assault and under attack. How do we need to respond collectively as a community of Black people, of allies, of people who aspire for a fair and just world? How should we show up in this moment?
Yeah, I love that. Because I think the we depends on how either close to the center or to the margin that you are in. I would say for those that are on the outer part of the margin, and I recommend people pick up bell hooks from the margin to the center, that you rest. Like, I do think that this is a period of sabbaticals, as our team calls them, radical sabbaticals, that this is a period of being much closer to community and not looking for outside sources to validate who we are, that we honor our movements, especially of recent day, and that we also start asking ourselves the questions around what intra-community equity means for us. I do think that there are times when D&I is raised, it feels like a space where people of color, unfortunately, but also understandably, are the teachers of communities that benefit the most from society. But that puts a lot of work on us. That's a lot of work. And then there's like this weird thing is like, and in a weird way, we also should be the ones leading this work, because I think part of the reason why a lot of efforts aren't sustainable is because there are holes in who the communicator is as to how they are able to bring a problem-solving mindset to experiences that many of them haven't experienced. So it becomes very like regimen and definitions and do 1, 2, 3 versus really like getting the essence of what it means to experience oppression. Yeah. So I think that there's like a rest component, but also figuring out what does equity mean? Like what is this way that I can channel my strengths to be a part of this problem solving puzzle without burning out, and also recognizing that within our communities, we have intersectional issues as well. Yeah. We have gender issues, we have disability issues, we have colorism issues. So there is an equity mindset conversation that we need to be having in our spaces, and that's going to take a lot of work. And probably just as valiant of a movement could be focused just on that. I think for those that are closer to privilege, and we've done this work, BIA is implementing the clapback for a reason, because we know that no industry is safe. Every industry is experiencing an equity crisis. We're seeing those who are creatives, who create the amazing content that we all at times take for granted when we see the finished product on Netflix or whatever. Those writers are right now striking, trying to figure out if they're actually going to be needed in the future. And many of them are Black and brown and trying to break their way through. So the concept of like moving up in their industry may not actually exist anymore. And that's a dream. That's not a dream deferred. That's a dream denied, right? So what does that mean for the executive that, felt that fire on the streets, whether it was Trayvon Martin or Sean Bell or Breonna Taylor or George Floyd, take that fire and then figure out what that means for communities that need power to be behind their voice. For those that are, and I guess I'll end with this, for those that are especially not Black, but also not white, I do think that there is a unique conversation about the connections that they have to. Let me rephrase that. How anti-Blackness impacts us all, but also how anti-Blackness, understanding anti-Blackness, is not just about Black people. Just like whiteness is not just about white people, that these laws that are in place are directly connected to their ability to also experience the fullness of humanity, that the othering of us is also by design created so that they can distance themselves from the community that in many ways we've all been programmed and socialized as determining that it's their fault that they're in that situation. So I think we're actually because we're moving towards a more brown society. I get nervous when people say brown and they assume that, oh, it's becoming more brown, i.e. less white, therefore there's going to be less whiteness. But if we're not practicing anything that's combating the psychology of whiteness, then our mindset is actually not only going to be the same, we're actually going to be treating each other. And we're going to be the ones on both sides of oppression, right? And so I think that we have to create intentional spaces that like call that out as a way of bringing in, not as a way of like isolating ourselves.
I've heard it said that whiteness has a very strong immune system.
It's the finest wine. That's what I like to say.
It's very intoxicating.
It's a very, very fine wine. It
started
evolves.
with just British, right? And then it was opened up to the Scottish, and the Irish, and then all of Western Europe.
But it will never ever be black. It will never ever trickle to us. And there's something both beautiful. I mean, I watch a lot of X-Men and I watch a lot of like there's something because it's not as pure, it's not as whatever comical as like good and evil, but it is a spiritual fight because we will never, I am too dark to be white. I don't care how many rapes happen that our ancestors did not ask for. I don't care how many degrees you bestow upon us. I don't care how fair your skin, how curly your hair, how light your eyes. You are never going to be white. And I think that that is something that, again, when I think about the browning of society, I think about the ways that whiteness creates passes for us to participate in privilege, but we're never, ever, ever going to experience, if whiteness is the standard of humanity, then we're never going to experience the fullness of that. If we challenge that there really shouldn't be a color, if you will, to humanity, then I think there's going to be some hard truths we'd all have to confront. But I also think that we have to be both. You have to be aware of what you're participating in to break it down. And so hopefully this is a wake up call of, I don't need to give you any more facts. We got enough facts. You don't need another article. I have a lot of degrees, but this is not a research book. This is not a legal book. This is actually like, can you sit with the conversation long enough to be like, I've got to do some shit differently, right? And that's the challenge, because it's not a typical business book. I think people just want to know what to do and then do good work. But me being a full human being is not good work.